NATO, a coalition of 31 nations with cutting-edge technology and vast resources, squaring off against Russia, a centralized, resilient power with a history of leveraging sheer force and strategic depth. On paper, NATO seems unstoppable, but in a direct conflict, Russia's strengths and strategic mindset could prove far more dangerous than they appear. So, who would win? Let's break this down and uncover the hidden layers of military power, strategy, and vulnerability that could decide the outcome. 1. Military size and composition. Here's the deal. NATO has more troops overall, around 3.5 million active personnel compared to Russia's 1.2 million. That's a big advantage, right? Well, not entirely. NATO's forces are spread out across multiple theaters: Europe, North America, and even the Pacific. Meanwhile, Russia has its forces concentrated, primarily along its western borders, ready to deploy rapidly. Now, NATO's biggest edge is its elite special forces. Think US Navy SEALs or British SAS. These guys are masters of infiltration and sabotage, ideal for striking deep into Russian logistics hubs. But here's the catch. NATO's diversity can also be a weakness. Coordinating 31 nations during a fast-moving conflict, not easy. Russia, on the other hand, has fewer troops but centralized control, meaning decisions are made faster and everyone's on the same page. Units like Spetsnaz and VDV paratroopers excel at shock tactics, hitting NATO hard where it's vulnerable. The downside? Russia's reliance on conscripts weakens its ability to sustain prolonged, high-intensity operations. What does this mean? NATO wins the numbers game, but Russia's unity and rapid response capability give it an edge in quick, decisive engagements. Second, land power. Let's talk tanks, because these are still the backbone of any ground war. NATO's M1 Abrams and Leopard 2 tanks are essentially the Ferraris of the battlefield, high-tech, durable, and deadly. These can engage Russian tanks like the T-72 or even the T-90M at longer ranges thanks to better optics and fire control. But here's the problem for NATO. Russia doesn't care about tank duels. Their doctrine focuses on overwhelming artillery and anti-tank ambushes to grind down advancing forces. Systems like the Kornet anti-tank missiles are cheap, mobile, and devastating. And Russia's artillery? It's unmatched in sheer volume. We're talking entire towns flattened before their troops even move in. This creates a dilemma for NATO. Sure, their tanks are better one-on-one, but they're vulnerable if Russia's artillery isn't neutralized first. This is where NATO's HIMARS systems shine. Precision strikes on Russian artillery and logistics can cripple their ability to sustain those barrages. The takeaway? NATO has better tech on the ground, but it needs to neutralize Russia's artillery and anti-tank defenses early. Otherwise, it risks getting bogged down in a drawn-out slugfest. 3. Air power. Now, if you thought NATO's land forces were advanced, wait until you hear about their air power. With 4,000 fighter jets and bombers, including stealth planes like the F-35 and F-22, NATO dominates the skies. These jets aren't just hard to shoot down, they're also flying data hubs, feeding real-time intelligence to ground and naval forces. Russia, in contrast, fields around 1,500 jets, with the Su-35 and Su-57 being their best options. While these planes are fast and deadly, they're no match for NATO's stealth advantage. But here's the twist. Russia doesn't rely on its air force to win air battles. Instead, they've built one of the most advanced air defense networks in the world. Systems like the S-400 and S-500 can create massive no-fly zones, forcing NATO to use risky CD, suppression of enemy air defenses missions. Drones add another layer to this fight. NATO's MQ-9 Reapers can strike from a safe distance, but Russia's electronic warfare systems can jam or even hijack enemy drones. The verdict? NATO has the clear edge in air power, but Russia's air defenses and EW systems could make the skies deadly even for the most advanced jets. 4. Naval power. On the seas, NATO is in another league entirely. The U.S. Navy alone has 11 supercarriers, which are essentially floating air bases. Add in Britain's and France's carriers, and NATO can dominate maritime operations anywhere in the world. Russia, by comparison, only has one carrier, the Admiral Kuznetsov, and it's not even fully operational. But don't count Russia out just yet. Their strength lies in their submarine fleet, particularly the Yasin-class nuclear subs, which can threaten NATO shipping and even launch missile strikes against land targets. What's the takeaway here? NATO's Navy can dominate open waters, but in confined spaces like the Black Sea, Russia's submarines and coastal defenses level the playing field. 5. Technology and cyber warfare. This is where NATO really shines. Their use of AI-driven systems and network-centric warfare allows them to integrate land, sea, and air operations seamlessly. Think of NATO as a finely tuned orchestra, with every unit feeding data into the bigger picture. Russia, meanwhile, focuses on specific technological advantages, like hypersonic missiles. These weapons, like the Kinjal, can evade most of NATO's defenses, striking critical targets like aircraft carriers or command centers. And let's talk cyber. Russia has a reputation for aggressive cyber attacks, disrupting infrastructure, spreading disinformation, and even shutting down power grids. Remember Ukraine in 2015? But NATO's collective cyber defenses, led by the US, make large-scale attacks far harder to pull off. Who wins here? NATO leads in overall tech integration, but Russia's hypersonic missiles and cyber aggression make it a wild card. 6. Tactical scenarios. Let's imagine a potential flashpoint, the Baltic states. If Russia launches a rapid invasion, its artillery and airborne forces could overwhelm local NATO units before reinforcements arrive. But NATO's advantage lies in air power. Stealth bombers and drones could strike Russian supply lines, cutting off their advance. Or take the Black Sea. Russia might deploy submarines and coastal defenses to challenge NATO's naval dominance, but NATO could counter with carrier-based airstrikes, neutralizing these threats from a distance. The big question is whether Russia would escalate asymmetrically using hypersonics or cyber attacks to cripple NATO's response. 7. Outcome prediction. Here's the bottom line, Berwat. In a prolonged war, NATO's superior resources, logistics, and technology would wear Russia down. In a short, high-intensity conflict, Russia's focus on shock tactics, artillery, and asymmetric weapons could give it an early edge, especially if NATO struggles to coordinate its response. But let's be clear, a conventional NATO-Russia conflict wouldn't stay conventional for long. The risk of escalation, including tactical nuclear weapons, makes this a scenario where nobody truly wins. So what do you think? Could NATO overcome Russia's defenses, or does Russia's unpredictability tip the scales? Let us know your thoughts.